Hello. Can you hear me? Is it still working?
Okay,
good. Yeah, it froze.
I thought that was going to be the intro. I was waiting for it.
Oh, the intro! Oh my god.
Intro to our podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Educator Guest Podcast with me, Dr. Cora Sargeant.
And me, Dr. Dan O'Hare.
Where two educational psychologists reveal how little they really know.
Each episode will discuss and reflect on topics or issues in education, psychology or society, puzzling our way through and no doubt demonstrating exactly what we don't know.
But along the way, we'll welcome some educated guests who can shed light on some of the complexities we'll report on. Reflect on? It was reflect on. I was close. It's close enough.
Let's hit that again. Let's do that again. Yeah.
But along the way, we'll welcome some educated guests who can shed light on some of the complexities. I can't do it. It's too funny. If you know, there's no chance I get through this.
Oh no. Oh no. Think of something sad.
Something really depressing.
Yeah, just think about one of your episodes of Classroom Psychology, and then
You don't laugh
then
in
it'll
an
be
episode
fine.
of Classroom Psychology. All right. But I think I may have a problem.
What is it? What is the?
I have no
Because
idea.
you can't. Just to give you some insight, we usually start the podcast by introducing the podcast. However, Cora is unable to do that today
I can't stop laughing.
of an episode of corpsing. So this is weird because we haven't had our usual move into the podcast. But hello.
Hello, it's good to see you, Dan.
Yeah, you too.
Deepest apologies for my complete lack of professionalism this afternoon. It's good to see you. How are you?
It's good to see you too. Yeah, I think it's the word reflect that you were particularly struggling on. You couldn't get past the word reflect, where we'll discuss and reflect on topics.
I couldn't get the word report out of my head, as if we're like working for the BBC or something.
I mean, that is interesting because the word report isn't in our introduction.
It's not even there. I literally made it up.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I'm good. I'm loving the fact that it's cold. This is today, yesterday, day before, the first actual cold days. 17th of November was the first frost. Number one, how is it so late? But also I love that it's frosty now.
Have you seen any snow just yet?
No. Now, snow did happen in Bristol the other morning, but I hadn't got up yet, so I missed it.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think it was about 8 a.m. and I didn't need to be up, so yeah. But lots of Bristolian Instagrams are like, it's snowing. Was it snowing down where you are?
It did snow, it flurried, but didn't settle. So a little tiny bit of snow. It does look like it might end up being a snowy Christmas, snowy January. Might be interesting.
That would be cool, yeah. I do love the snow. I can't remember where I was yesterday.
You love all the seasons. It doesn't seem
I love all
what
the
season
seasons.
it is. I love this season.
I'm not a massive fan of British summertime.
Okay. Oh gosh, really? The most popular season. You just counterculture, Dan.
What? So apart from stumbling over our introduction, what else have you been doing? Tell me what's been happening.
I've got a new therapist, which I feel very good about. I've been messaging with her for a week or two and booking this kind of first initial free first meeting. And she's great. She's real good. She's
Nice.
She's genuine and snarky and funny, which I didn't realize I needed in a therapist until I met her, and I was like, "Oh, you absolutely need this in a therapist." Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, she's great, and she's an expert in the things I need her to be an expert on. She knows what she's talking about. So
Perfect.
I think she's going to be great. I'm looking forward to getting started next week. I feel like that's a good thing.
Yeah, when I've had counselling before, and the worst experience I had is where the counsellor kind of curled up on the armchair in front of me and was like, just like had their cup of tea and was just like, so talk to me, and then stayed silent for like 50 minutes.
Whoa.
And I that was years and years and years ago. I just left feeling way more stressed. Like, what I actually need is someone that talks back.
Yes,
and
ideally.
Like, can challenge and, that kind of tete-a-tete. That's much, Now, that's not for everyone, but like when you were saying, she's kind of sarky and, that sounds like a good dynamic.
I love it. When the two of us are just like making each other laugh in between making each other cry, I'm all for it. Like that's going to be a good relationship. For sure. And beyond that, I have been enjoying an extremely busy schedule. I feel like I am exceptionally busy right now, but I think that's a good thing. So, like, back in the depths of the MS days, which I still have MS. Turns out it's incurable. What can you do? Back when it was like at its most severe, I was finding it really hard to do the usual things that I would do, and I had to really scale back like my responsibilities and try to kind of manage my life better. And then today, I was like up at the crack of dawn, did makeup, got myself to Portsmouth where I was meeting people and did a bunch of meetings. I was in school for a bit, hung out with people, and then came back here to come and do a podcast, and I feel good. Like, so while I'm busy, there's a kind of privilege to that experience, I think, that I am not taking for granted.
Yeah. Oh, it's great that you feel good, like having that sort of that busy buzz, maybe busy buzz, Dan. Busy buzz. Yeah. You went in with like big stuff like therapy and the busy buzz. I was gonna say, like, I've got back to watching Vikings on Netflix.
Vikings is so good. Wait,
that was my contribution.
That's Ragnar, right?
Ragnar Lagertha.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah. If you haven't watched Vikings, so number one, there's like 1,065 episodes. There's so many of them.
Really?
I think
I've
I'm
watched
on
all
like
of them.
No, I'm on series 5, and there's
wow.
something like 78 episodes to go before the end. But I feel like I'm also learning loads about Vikings. We also had we're recording this on Thursday, and on Tuesday we had our like annual EdSci team meeting. We get together once a year and just reflect and plan. So loads of like exciting stuff. So in September next year, that is our actual 10th birthday.
Wow, so, my days, it's been 10 years.
I know.
Does it feel like 10 years?
It feels yes and no. No, in that it still feels like that it's all really new, but that means that there's like 6 like cohorts of TEPs where EdSci has always been there.
Wow.
Which kind of like blows my mind, because it feels like we're just like newly arrived, but we're not newly arrived. We've got 10 years under our belt. So yeah, loads of like cool plans for like 10th birthday type stuff for the community, which I can't share now, but I will share next year.
It will look forward to it. And of course, like the EdSci Festival then was a 10th year celebration of its own, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And then we can do it again in 2027. Yeah. Another 10th year celebration. Yeah.
What an incredible loads of achievement, right? Yeah. 10 years in to host one of the best known, best attended, like most modern styles of educational psychology conference. Who knows what the future holds for EdSci?
I know. One of the things we're really excited about, which I've talked about before, we're going to launch a community fund in January. So, there are loads of colleagues out there at whatever stage, like being an assistant, a trainee, whoever, who have just great ideas about how to build the profession. And sometimes, the key thing that gets in the way is lack of money.
Yes.
So, when we started EdSci, there was nowhere where we could go to get money for all the things you need to pay for, like a Zoom license, web hosting, domain, the plugins you have to buy for your website. So, yeah, the community fund, I'm really excited because that will just be, it's a little pot of money for now, that people can bid into if they need a bit of pump priming funding to get a project off the ground. So yeah, I'm really excited for us to do that because it would just be great to get a sense of the ideas and energy that's out there where just a little bit of money could just really make the difference.
It sounds like a hugely important thing, especially now where we're living in a world where there's not a lot of government funding. And back when there were projects and money and funding available for projects, now there isn't. And so educational psychologists, in order to make something happen, often have to do it independently in some way. And that's why the independent practice of educational psychology has grown so much. And so having something for a fund for innovation in private and independent practice sounds amazing.
And then we went out for a great EdSci Christmas party together. So that was
excellent.
That was cocktails and a dinner, which was very nice.
Oh,
It's
that
nice to
sounds
get
lovely.
together. Yeah, obviously with a Manhattan.
I was going to say, was there a Manhattan in your hand?
100%.
Totally.
Oh, and then I ordered a second cocktail that was more adventurous. Now, the cocktail was called Poulez-vous. Now, those French speakers among our listenership will know poulet is the French for chicken.
Okay.
And this cocktail, so I asked the waiter, and apparently this cocktail did have a roast chicken tincture in it.
Whoa.
And I kid you not, it tasted of roast chicken.
Was it good?
It was. No. No. Please, I would highly advise, do not get the roast chicken cocktail.
Even conceptually, there are some flaws with this idea.
Yeah, they tried to explain it as it had a rosemary and thyme oil that had been kind of two droplets into the cocktail. And I like rosemary and thyme, but when you're drinking an ice cold cocktail and the only impression you're getting is Walker's roast chicken crisps, it's not
flawed.
It's not the one.
I love the idea that someone somewhere was like, Claude, I've had this idea. A roast chicken tincture we can put into a cocktail. Claude's like, okay, fine.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it came from. I should have asked who came up with this. I should have given feedback this was not the one, but I just thought, well, I thought I'm not going to waste it. I drank it all.
You drank incredible. Yes, that's dedication.
I wasn't going to waste it.
No.
Yeah. So that's them learning and some wisdom I can impart. Avoid the roast chicken cocktails.
Avoid roast chicken cocktails.
Pretty much, yeah. Also, it's coming up to Christmas. I can't believe it. It's 4 and a bit weeks.
We're almost 20th of November. We're getting close to a month away. Yeah,
I know. Do you decorate at Christmas at home?
We get a tree. That's probably the most important thing. It's got to be a tree. Kaz loves a tree. So there will be in the background of the shot in a couple of weeks, there's going to be a tree right there. And she loves it. What about you? Do you do a lot of decoration?
Yes. I love Christmas.
I don't know what I expected, and I don't know why I didn't expect that.
Right. Basically, yeah. So, yeah, everybody, I love festivities, particularly autumnal winter festivities.
Do I see some Christmas lights already encroaching into the shot, sneaking in?
Yeah. Underneath our flags, we've got some, rainbow lights.
Of course.
Absolutely.
They're rainbow lights. They're not Christmas lights. They're rainbow lights.
Rainbow lights.
They will become
But from
Christmas
the 1st
lights.
of December, they can become Christmas lights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I guess one of the key things I was going to ask, the big decision is when do you get the tree? So I've been walking around the area, and for the earliest I seen one was the week after Halloween, Christmas trees up.
Wow.
That's too early for me, but I appreciate there are, divided opinions about when the tree goes up and when it comes down.
Are they cut trees? Do they survive that long if they've been cut?
Yeah, I don't know. I could just see them in the windows. I like a good, like, what's their Christmas sound like?
See your Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Because you can get potted Christmas trees, right, that you then can plant afterwards.
Yeah, or they come and take them back. I think there's like a service in Bristol where they just drop it off and take it back. But we don't get our tree until like after the 1st of December.
Right. Okay. It's a very serious point.
Yeah, this is a serious point.
You communicated that with all the gravity of me talking about MS. Like, listen, I need you to know. We don't get Christmas trees until after.
But if you're going to have your Christmas tree in the background, I can't find my calendar. I think we're recording another one before Christmas, which makes me think maybe I need to like relocate my recording setup so that I've got a Christmas tree background.
That'd be so cool.
Because that would be cool.
That'd be amazing. We'll do a Christmas episode. I think we're actually recording twice, don't we? We're recording our first educated guest.
Oh, we do. Are we going to talk about that now?
Maybe we let people know to look forward to the first educated guest, mystery educated guest. But I think you're going to be pleased. I think you're going to be very pleased to find out who we've got.
And we can tell listeners more on the next recording, because that's not when the educated guest is coming.
You're right.
But the next one after. So yeah, we can do that.
So episode 6, we will reveal who is coming for episode 7.
Absolutely. So where are we going today? What are we going to talk about? I think in this episode, we thought we were going to talk about something that might feel a bit uncomfortable.
Yes.
Maybe talk about, I guess, like disenfranchisement within, within public services, but for us as well, sort of disenfranchisement within the educational psychology profession. And I think the systems around it, like, I think if we have this conversation from the outset, this conversation isn't about individuals or criticizing, like the many EPs and leaders who just work incredibly hard and, care deeply about children and families and one another. I think what we're going to do is maybe explore some of the wider, like, structural cultural dynamics that many EPs tell us they're experiencing. Things like uncertainty about the profession's vision, or, division around different ways of doing educational psychology, inequity between roles. And I think sometimes that can come with like moral and emotional strain and tension.
When I first entered the profession, long before I became an educational psychologist, when I was just an assistant, I remember the Sandbanks conferences that Hampshire used to run. They were big, huge opportunities to spend time together as a profession. I remember us kind of doing a Kaylee late at night, as a profession, just a bunch of EPs doing a Kaylee. And if you just cringed, that is an accurate response. That is appropriate. Yeah, but it was beautiful. It was kind of fun. And we'd go out for dinner together. We'd all eat together. We'd stay in a hotel together. And local authorities would fund it because local authorities had the money to fund it, right? They would prioritize CPD and community building and professional development and just, I think there was a sort of implicit understanding that EPs, like everybody else, needed a space where we could let our hair down and be together for a while. And wild things happened. I will remember forever early morning being out with my EP team when I was just an assistant. I was this little rookie young person, and I will remember forever like walking on the sand of the beaches that were crusty underfoot with cold, and just surrounded by EP colleagues. Can you imagine just being out on the beach early morning in the sunrise, just that level of spending time together and being as a community? I freaking loved it. And the first time that I have started to feel anything like that in recent years was at the EdSci Festival. I think that was the first time I started to feel a bit more like that, when the chat was flowing, people were contributing, participating. There was this vibe of like togetherness, which I haven't felt in many years. These are incredibly valuable opportunities to spend time together and build community, and therefore feel resilient as a community. And I think educational psychology is struggling right now to feel like a community. What do you think, Dan? I need to get your take.
The first thing that caught me as you were talking was this phrase, like the profession. That for me is those people that know me will know I don't like that phrase, and I don't even know why. Maybe like this conversation is about exploring why. Like, what does that mean? Who gets to be called or be part of the profession? And I wonder if like what some of the things we'll talk about are some of the like I guess intra-professional narratives that happen, where some people may, for whatever reason, not see themselves as part of the profession. They might not have a good relationship with the profession. And I don't know, like when we're saying that, who's included? What does that mean? What are the limits to that? Is it inclusive? Is it broad? Is it not? Or is it narrow? It's all of these questions come to mind when I hear that phrase, because what I think it presupposes is that we, and by that I mean the entire body of like educational psychologists, have a really strong sense of what our shared purpose is, that we have a shared identity, and that we have a shared positive, like actionable vision. And I don't know if we do. Like, what is our vision as a whole profession? What that's me putting you on the spot. Cora, what is our vision?
I love that question. Yeah, my vision for this profession I think I held very close to the idea that children, young people facing problems and trying to solve them independently, and then teachers and parents and school staff more broadly trying to help them to solve the problems that they are facing in their lives, in their inclusion, are all fundamentally solvable, and that the people in the room can all solve those problems, and that the job is to give people the kind of insight, the opportunity to reflect, the psychology in which that they might be lacking, that they might need in order to understand and then solve the problem that they're facing. If a child or young person doesn't want to go to school because they feel like they are being marginalized, probably are, and understanding that kind of element of marginalization that makes them feel isolated, that makes them feel anxious, that makes them not want to go to school, understanding that and attending to it, we can solve basically any problem. That was a fundamental tenet of my practice. And I would say that to people, that all problems are solvable. And I would say to parents, and my job fundamentally, and I trod the edges of like appropriateness in the use of my time. When I would say to parents, I would say to schools, and I would absolutely do it, I would say at the review meeting, we're going to come back and we're going to review how things are going. And if the trajectory is good, then fantastic. We'll plan more reviews, but I may not attend them. Let me know if you run into any difficulties in the future. But there is always the possibility that I am wrong. And therefore, like at that review meeting, if I am wrong, I need you to tell me. And then you tell me, and we will go back to the beginning. We will start generating and testing hypotheses again until we find a model of understanding that works for this child. And we will keep doing that until we find a hypothesis that works, like the complex problem-solving process, the problem analysis framework, Monson and Fredrickson's, that's the one I prefer. It is designed with that kind of iterative process. Yeah, exactly. And I think that was true then. I think it was true that we could solve all problems because there was enough slack in the system. There was enough money in the system to make it possible. So the And the curriculum has now become so fast paced and has become, school budgets are so stretched that to do half the things that we all think are the right things to do in the room when we've got a good model of understanding is still really hard these days. It's hard for people to find the money to be able to implement them. And schools innovate like nobody else because they have to in order to make ends meet. And they are the right people for the job. But I find increasingly, I don't do a lot of educational psychology practice now. I haven't done for a few years. But even before I stopped practicing and started teaching, those who can do and those who can't, like me, just went on to teach. I found that it was becoming increasingly difficult to feel optimistic in that way.
Is there, though, I don't disagree with anything that you have just said. Is there a risk when we're thinking about our vitality as a profession and our, as a collection of individuals who all notionally do the same job together? Is there a risk that we externalize the issues too much? As in, it's because of, the difficulties that the individuals experience or groups of people in our profession experience, or the difficulties we're experiencing, they are because of government policy, the curriculum, a lack of money. I absolutely, fully agree. But I guess I am curious about, or I guess my worry is that in the current situation, and I think you see this a lot when there are comments from a professional perspective about various issues that sections of society or groups of children or families might face, my worry is that we talk about the current situation as if we're bystanders who are just watching the current of the river flow by, and we're not involved. It all just kind of happens to us, rather than seeing ourselves as kind of active participants in. We have channeled that river. We have been part of the process and the system and the establishment that has kind of channeled that river, added the, kind of directed its flow, slowed it down, sped it up at certain times. And there's something in that experience for me that I find quite jarring and kind of clashes with, I don't know whether it's values, but that's going back to the idea: is there a risk if we're thinking about like our vision as a profession? What are we for? What's the point of us? Almost like, do we even think generationally about ourselves and the impact we want to make? Where do we as a collective body of professionals want to be in 20 years' time? We are the ancestors of EPs who will come in 10, 30, 40, 50 years' time. What do we want them to look back and say about us? My colleague Adrienne and I talked in a blog for the BPS about how central we were to the process of labelling children as educationally subnormal. We weren't on the sidelines. Who do you think was doing the IQ tests? It was us. And are we doomed to repeat this cycle of, it's not us, Gov, it's the policy, it's the government, it's the funding. What is our role? What is our responsibility in the face of lots of groups of professionals in our world saying, what do I do? I don't feel like, is this for me? Where do I go? I think these are questions that both of us probably come across repeatedly. I don't even know if I have a question there.
I love it. I think I often start when you finish speaking with something like, I love it. And this is one of the archetypal moments where I truly love it. I think I need to be like mindful that I'm not speaking for the profession in some way, like not speaking for colleagues. But when you spoke then about the importance of us taking responsibility and having agency, like claiming the agency in our own like professional lives, this is one of those moments that I feel I'm truly appreciative of you because you are so right. And it makes me think that, the number of times, even when we started, when we work with children, young people and parents, even teachers, when we're working with them toward their inclusion, solving the problem that they're facing with them, they often feel disenfranchised. They often feel like they don't have agency. And they often feel like the problem is insurmountable. There's nothing they can do. If only the system were different. And our work is about trying to work within that system creatively to solve the problems of inclusion. And now maybe the problems of inclusion are ours. We are also the child in the circumstance. We have a problem that we are facing as professionals in trying to kind of carve a path for ourselves, in trying to remind ourselves of our own agency, and trying to get back to what we think is important, our own values. If we, like in my own practice, if I think that solving complex problems is at the heart of my practice, then me saying, well, I can't really do that these days, and leaving the profession, hey, I did both of those things, may not be the right way to approach it. Maybe there was and is opportunity to say, well, that in itself is a complex problem that I can solve. Because if it is true that all complex problems are solvable, then this problem, the problem of me not being able to do that in my practice so much, is itself a complex problem that should be solvable. If that's the case, what do we need to solve it? What are we missing right now?
One of my colleagues, in May, the Bristol tutor team hosted it was like a national EP tutor conference, which you came to in Bristol. And one of my colleagues at Bristol Uni, Dr. Tom Porter, talked about how professionals in health and care contexts are increasingly experiencing this thing called moral injury, that an experience related to compassion fatigue and burnout. And Brett Litz and colleagues define moral injury as perpetrating, failing to prevent, bearing witness to, or learning about acts that transgress deeply held moral beliefs and expectations. And I think, you probably remember from that day, Cora, like that really grabbed a lot of people's attention as something that we're aware of colleagues, as course tutors, we're maybe aware of colleagues of experiencing, or trainees kind of touching the edges of this feeling of kind of like moral injury. And I guess that can be related to government policy. It might be related to funding decisions. It might be related to, I guess, I liked the idea of like that definition, including like failing to prevent acts that transgress like deeply held moral beliefs and expectations, because there's only so much that people can do. And that for me kind of quite strongly tapped into some of my experiences of experiencing, like Somerville talked about moral distress as coming before, not that it's hierarchical, but moral distress as something that's perhaps less severe than moral injury, and the moral distress is kind of like the ethical canary. That was sort of Somerville's phrase, which I really liked. Kind of the canary in the coal mine, that something isn't happening, and actually if you're experiencing this to a great extent, then you can move into this state of kind of moral injury. And some of the research, so Stephen Bow and colleagues looked at what are the causes of moral injury. Now, a lot of this research has been done in healthcare professions, so first responders, paramedics, doctors. But I do think it has some relevance to us because, Stephen Bow and colleagues looked at the causes of moral injury among some kind of caring professionals. And it included things like inaction, institutional failures. And I think maybe that's, for me, possibly connected to some of the intra-professional stuff. Which again is just my view. I'm not representing anyone else's view, but also being forced to work in ways that conflicted with sort of ethics, and I think that is a sense that is out there, that some of the ways that we might be expected to work or are working is conflicting with the ethics that we hold deeply, and so this is kind of experienced as like a moral transgression. the effects of these experiences aren't just psychological, but they are social. And as Leanne Lentz said, like in 2021 around moral injury, they are also existential, in that these are experiences that can lead to people experiencing a deep sense of threat to their personal identity. And that resonated so strongly with me. You know, I have certainly personally had the experience in being an educational psychologist, thinking in the context within which I was working, who am I? Is this who I am? Is this what I want to do? How does this fit with what I thought I was about? And I guess that's that kind of existential distress that you know, self-esteem interventions or enhanced supervision could probably support to some extent, but it is primarily, I guess, a systemic, interrelational kind of dynamic that's happening. And if we focus on, like, you know, well, we'll help you get over your moral injury, is that missing what the core of that is about?
It's so interesting that it speaks so closely to what we've talked about in previous episodes around that a systemic problem can be seen as like a within-person problem. I remember we talked about Johann Hari's book Lost Connections, and one of the lost connections was a loss of connection to our values. And I wonder if that is part of what a moral injury is. You are sort of, because of a situation that you're in and the things that you kind of have to do within the system that move you away from what you consider important, whether that kind of risks tearing you from your values. And maybe that sort of disconnection from your values makes you less happy, less thriving. And then that less happiness, less thrivingness starts to be internalized as, oh, why am I so anxious? Or why do I feel so unhappy? You know, why do I not feel so fulfilled? If only I was a different person, or if only I had the right therapist, right? Like, I'm seeing my therapist next Wednesday. You know, maybe I would feel more fulfilled. So, and that reminds me then, as we try to kind of reclaim our own agency in this, it reminds me of Seligman right now is working, I think, on his magnum opus around agency. And he's been giving a couple of interviews about how I think he thinks of agency as fundamental to human flourishing, that whenever humans flourish, it's because they have greater agency. And when humans are stripped of agency, they stop flourishing. So maybe there is an opportunity here to reclaim our agency, to make decisions within the system that we're in, to remind ourselves of our values, to reconnect with our values, to take our agency to redirect the flow of the river of time around educational psychology, and to, you know, recruit our strengths again. Because that's the other thing that strikes me about this, is that it feels like the more you were talking about as, you know, people feeling moral injury, the more it struck me that it was sort of the antithesis of like Seligman, Csikszentmihalyi's work around personal strengths. You know, us being able to understand our personal strengths and recruit them frequently in our work is actually kind of fundamental to us thriving. So if we were to reclaim our agency by getting back to our values, what values do you think we should aspire to? Like, what values do we need to remind ourselves are important to us in our profession? Like you and I in particular. Maybe other people take something from it, but you and I specifically.
Centrally to that, for any work on this, in my opinion, has to be community and inclusion. And I don't mean the focusing outwards. I think there, as with my experience over time and my learning about myself, is that often, I guess, as a caring professional, when you're confronted with something, a difficult situation, we might want to like look outwards. So I had this conversation with, you know, nearly 300 teachers last Friday. I was with a multi-academy trust doing lots of work with them around climate and education and climate action, and really highlighting to them that impetus to kind of, yes, climate's an issue, so how do I help the children? It's almost like, well, pause. what's your relationship with our planet?
Right.
Where are you? What's the relationship that you have with climate breakdown? How does it affect you? Have you spent time thinking about that? And when I say community and inclusion in terms of our values and how that might contribute to a vision, what I am talking about is how we are effective at including everyone in our own work, in our own profession. So there are positions in our profession now that have at their centre, in my opinion, division. And one of the most frequent ways that comes across is what I would perceive to be a created division between our colleagues who work in local authorities and our colleagues who work in private practice. We are way too small to divide in that way. And it would seem to me that there's, that moral judgment about what people do and how they do it is the antithesis to belonging, community, and inclusion. But I do think there are some narratives that are present and some discourses and some things out there that do kind of hint at the idea that our colleagues who work in local authorities, that's the morally superior choice. And there's explicit reference to the idea that colleagues who don't do that are in it for the money, suddenly become less ethical. I think that belies the complexity that often a large proportion of our colleagues are doing both, and it would strike me as highly improbable that Bob is ethical Monday to Wednesday and stops being ethical on a Thursday and Friday in professional practice. And I think it's very hard to develop a vision, a shared vision and a shared identity and purpose when I think one of our reactions to the difficulties that we're experiencing and maybe uncertainty about the future is to divide.
I love the idea that we are too small to be divided in that way.
So are.
And I think you and I have represented this in our conversations before. I know I have held that moral superiority in my own mind around local authority practice versus private practice. And I know that I've every so often, I'll make a gentle joke about that with you. And I know that you do private practice. And I know that you have caught me around that in our conversations before. You are always so very gentle and kind in your catching. You catch me, and I find that helpful. And so, maybe our friendship is a part of that journey. I feel like knowing you, knowing Ed Sai, being a part of that has helped me to evolve my own understanding of trying to take what you just said to heart, that yes, some of us are private EPs, some of us are exclusively private EPs, and we've all had some experiences with challenging EPs in private practice. We've also had experiences of challenging EPs in local authority practice, and that we are too small to be divided. We are all fundamentally EPs.
If we buy into this narrative that there are divisions, at what point do we stop dividing? Do we then divide into those LAs that have gone bankrupt and those that haven't? Does that mean that the EP services in the LAs that haven't gone bankrupt, they're just, they're better? Probably not. Do we then subdivide those EPs who don't work in private practice in local authorities? Do we subdivide those into ones that are sole traders, private companies, social enterprises, charities, cooperatives? Do we start to try and rank them in some way? Because I think what that leads to is this kind of triad which is connected to experiences of moral distress. And that's this triad of sort of guilt, shame and betrayal. And interestingly, I don't think it's just in our current circumstance where I think there's often too much of a focus on how we're divided. And I do think that comes across as a kind of a private LA distinction. I don't think that triad of guilt, shame and betrayal would only be experienced by those who have, for example, left local authority practice. I think just the contextual kind of emanations of a narrative of division are likely to mean that those still working in the preferred, I'm going to put that in commas, preferred sort of working environment of a local authority EP service, for example, would also experience guilt, shame, and betrayal. These kind of dynamics and circumstances have to change.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Incredible. Yes. Yes. So in the context of shame, we need radical de-shaming.
Radical de-shaming.
I'm really struck by that vision of the future. You and I sitting under a blanket outside under a porch, watching all the young EPs running by, and thinking what those EPs of the future, the distant future, Dan.
Yeah.
What we want them to be able to look back on. What are we going to tell our grand EP kids about about the profession, about how we were in this moment and how we got back to our values and our community and got our agency back in a difficult time?
Wow.
What do we want to be able to tell them?
I mean, I hope we would tell them that we saw the links between things like, I think certain parts of our profession experience procedural exclusion because of how they choose to work. I hope they would be saying that generation saw the links between the structural, systemic factors that were influencing experiences of the profession, between the links between that and procedural exclusion, how it was related to things like moral distress or moral injury, and they decided we can't do this anymore. We can't make people feel, for whatever reason, because of their job title or who pays their wages, we can't make them feel or give them a lack of recognition as a legitimate stakeholder in our future because of those things. Actually being denied meaningful participation is something that big sections of the profession at that time 50 years ago saw as an issue, and they just said no more. That's something that changed. And I'm going to take a sidestep here because I think the current setup that we have, where there is this kind of drive to, it's not a drive towards division, but it is experienced as that, I think, by many people. You get this, I think people then end up with this perception that their contributions are undervalued or invisible. And I don't think that's limited to EPs who work in private capacities. I think that's probably the same for EPs that work in local authorities as well, for various reasons. So, that was seen as an issue that we took hold of, that we decided to reject divisive narratives within our own profession, that we, I guess, decided to confront some of those sacred cows head on. That maybe it's probably the case that sometimes we aren't always collaborative and reflective. We can't be that all the time, but let's find the times that we aren't doing that to kind of counter it. The idea that we challenged, we took the time now to challenge whatever unspoken hierarchy there is between private work, statutory work, LA work, university work, and kind of just talked about it, what that we had the bravery and the courage to ask the question together, what does an EP profession with a coherent vision look like? And that everyone was invited to imagine something better. I would love them in 50 years to say that happened in 2026. That was the year, where we developed ourselves ways to talk about division without blame. That there are different ways of doing things, but it's not about blame, and actually confronting the psychological and emotional forces behind some of those feelings and recognizing that they're there, and actually we can talk about it, and it doesn't mean that you're betraying the profession, that actually this is the hallmark of steps towards a vision, I guess, of collective professional agency.
Incredible.
Did that answer the question? I don't know.
Well, listen, I was inspired. So we need to radically de-shame, de-blame, and return to, I am struck by the idea that of identity salience, in a world where we feel under pressure, when we all feel, I like what you said about that all of our professional colleagues all feel maybe a little undervalued right now, and that our instinct might be to divide in that context, to create a kind of out group to say, well, at least I'm a local authority EP, or well, at least I'm a private EP. But actually, maybe what we need is to remind ourselves that we are all psychologists, and that we all have a shared ambition that we can make all children and young people, we can make a system where all children and young people can belong.
Yeah, the system, absolutely. And that we are more than capable of making a system where all EPs can belong. I think that we got to do that first.
There it is.
We got to do that first. And I think if we can look back on like the late 2020s and say to ourselves in 50 years' time, that was the moment that we stopped obsessing about the unique role of the EP. We could center the needs, we could center the needs of the people that we work with and the communities that we work with. I don't think many parents or young people or carers or professionals who are in profound distress because of their life circumstances and because of things that have happened to them and difficulties they're facing are turning to us and saying, oh, could I just check, do you get monthly supervision? And are you HCPC? Those things are absolutely important, but they're not the benefits of working with us. If we can reorientate our narrative about ourselves to center what matters most to the people we're working with, rather than centering what matters most to us, I think there's a shift there that would really strengthen our movement towards a coherent professional vision for ourselves.
I love it. A new year, a new vision. Get into the comments, folks. Our dear listeners, get in there and tell us what your vision is. What do you think? When we are, all of us are 4,500 people sitting under that absolutely gigantic blanket, under that gigantic porch, looking at our EP grandkids out there. What do you want to be able to tell them about this time, about what we did? What do you want their values to become that we steer them towards now in the decisions that we take today? What other values you think are important in being an applied psychologist in this world?
Yeah. As we watch a cow wander past from the porch.
Yes, we need to confront that cow.
Confront that cow.
Someone confront that cow.
Absolutely. Wow. Oh my goodness. I wonder if I got on my soapbox there a bit. That's never a good thing, is it?
Listen, I did too. And I do think that we shouldn't be afraid. This is what you were talking about, right? This is about radical de-shaming, that all of us, and I imagine everybody out there too, myself included, when we say something in a meeting, when we say something on a podcast to a huge number of people, you always think, God, maybe I should have said it differently, or gosh, maybe I should have, maybe I could have been more something. But if you were authentic and honest in the moment, if you're just you, I don't think you should ever feel ashamed of that. Dan, I think me too. But out of all our listeners, I think we can radically de-shame, and that starts with authenticity. So if these are our authentic feelings, Dan, I don't think we should be afraid of them.
Preach. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, wow. I feel lighter.
I'm so glad.
When I was connecting, when I was doing the notes, putting in all the bits about distress and disenfranchisement and injury and what's our role in that, it was all very but having the chance to even just talk it out was great. So yeah,
I do too. I always love these little chats that we get to have together with our little on the porch under a blanket family out there, all listening and being part of the community together. Maybe in a context where community is what's needed in our profession, maybe we find it a little bit here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Have a good rest of the week. Enjoy your weekend. It's warming up, but enjoy the cold while it lasts.
Listen, I'm looking forward to it warming up, I'm not going to lie. Good to see you.
You too. Bye.